Hello and welcome to AfriDominion. My name is Freeman Singirankabo, and thank you so very much for tuning into our program today. And for those of you joining us live, especially if you're joining us live for the very first time, welcome, 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 welcome. I want to give you a huge welcome and asking that you take some time to check in with us and visit us. Those of you guys who are listening via radio station, welcome. Those of you guys listening via television, welcome. And those of you on social media, especially social medias like X, YouTube, or Facebook, and the others that are privately owned. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to just tell you to please consider becoming a part of our larger family. Come and let's fight a good fight together, and be each other's brothers keepers. And for that reason, I want to make sure that we communicate how you get in touch with us, especially for those of you guys who are joining us for the very, very first time. You can reach us here on our website, which is www.afridominion.com. www.afridominion.com. Our main email is info@afridominion.com. Info@afridominion.com. So I want to go right ahead and give you a huge welcome and inviting you to come and partner with us in our in so many various endeavors, especially that we are in the spirit of truth, love, and trust. A spirit that is there to help liberate ourselves as sons and daughters of Africa, and be and be completely responsible for our own lives and the lives of our families, our community, and our entire African continent as its whole. And with that in mind, guys, I want to go ahead and give you a huge welcome and asking that you also don't forget to share our content. Those of you guys following our broadcast via online and social media, so that many more families can know what we are doing, can join the conversation, and we can forge arms and be and work together as each other's brothers and keepers. So today's conversation, I am bringing back, as you have fully been following. This year, we on the road, and we want to talk about nothing but our families, the things of which gives us the ability to be self-reliant, gives us the opportunity to become a better versions of ourselves and become unified as one people, um, protect ourselves, our interest, but also and above all, develop one another. So today is none that it's no different. I really want to talk about again our unity as Africans, the unity of Africans, and the topic or the conversation that I want to discuss with you today. It is going to be in alignment with that. Specifically, I want to talk about the fact that the internal African nation boundaries must be destroyed for the survivor of the United African family. Again, I want to talk to you about the issue or the urge that we destroy our boundaries. The internal African nation boundaries must be destroyed for our own security as Africans. And you have a saying in it, I have a saying in it, and collectively we have to do something about it. Now, why do I want to bother with this whole boundaries as an issue? I want to submit to you, those of you guys following for the very first time, that Africa has 54 nations. And then we also have multiple islands all around Africa. But the strangest thing about Africa and African people is that all of us, we are dissected into so many little small pieces, which I call nations, countries, region, districts, and so on. And because we have been dissected into small little pieces, there are consequences that comes along with that. And that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about. That's one of the things that I want to talk to you about today, but also show you that you have a role in it. Every single one of us, we have a role into our survivor, our tomorrow survival. We have a role in ensuring our security as African family. Tomorrow is not guaranteed if I cannot do all that I must do today to secure tomorrow. And it's for that spirit that I come today and tell you that as we are led by the spirit of truth, love, and trust, let us also extend it to the rest of our family members as Africans. First and foremost, boundaries, African family, African nations, African communities. We have to get rid of boundaries that have been predetermined for us. Why boundaries? Why do African nations have boundaries today? And what's so important about boundaries, but also what are the con? What is so negative about boundaries, or about us having boundaries as African families? In another language today, I give an example that the African boundaries, I see them as prison cells. So Africa has 54 major boundaries, or 54 major boundaries towards, that separate countries. These 54 major nation boundaries, they separate one people from another, one family from another family, one African family from left to the right. And there is such a tremendous amount of burden that before one family goes from one room of the house to the next, you have to ask permission to the prison ward. You got to ask permission to the security guard who has the door locked. You ask permission in forms of you filing out a visa, you getting a piece of documentation that says that you are going to visit a friend here, a friend there. You have to literally explain yourselves. And this is something that us as an African family at large, we need to get rid of in this 2025 and beyond. Why am I saying that? It is not in our best interest as African families to have these boundaries within ourselves. I would argue with you that these boundaries are there for the purpose of serving those who have already been colonizing Africa. They are there to ensure that they do not fight among themselves. I'll give you a clear example. For those of you who don't know, the the Democratic Republic of the country, back in the days, it belonged to Belgium, to King Leopold of Belgium. It was a personal property of the Belgian king. After such a long time, as Africa went through the whole independence, it was given to Africans, but the control never was fully given back to Africans up to this very day that we are talking about it. There are so many African nations. Today, I want to bring your attention to the nation of Burkina Faso, the nation of Niger, and the nation of Mali. They forged they forged arms, they forged forces, and they became one nation with three different rooms. But these three different rooms do not change the identity of who they are, but it increases the strength of the African family in that region. I want to give you an example of the United States and then Europe. In the United States, we have many different rooms, which I call states. These states represent different rooms in a house. The house is the United States of America. It has 50 rooms, including one living room, which we call the District of Columbia of the Capitol. Now, every single one of these rooms interact with another room without a single need to ask permission from one ward to another. So if the United States of America has such a system that allows its citizens, its goods, its services, its visitors to go from one room to another, why is it that Africans need to go ask prison ward for permission? Why is it that you have to bring burden or to add burden to African family to live from a toilet to the kitchen, from the kitchen to your room, from the kitchen to the living room? This is something that we have to get rid of in 2025 and above. Now, again, I will submit to you, when colonizers find Africa, and they made it seem, or they converted into their personal property. Because they were fighting among themselves, it was necessary that they dissect Africa into many little small pieces, which became nations. And these small pieces, they serve at the pleasure of the colonizers. Even when the time of independence when came through, colonizers maintained power behind the scene, behind the curtains, up to this very moment, until we are starting to speak up, until we started realizing, and we realizing that, hey, something wrong with this picture. There's no way that I'm going to have an inheritance of a land, an inheritance of that which our forefather have fought for, yet it's only in piece of papers, but I have no control over it physically. Africans are slaves on their own land. Africans are in bondage on the African continent. African families are not allowed to own African property. Again, fact check me. I always tell you guys to fact check me. In 2025, we have many African nations where their citizens do not have access to their own property, where they're not allowed to actually own property. But that property was an inheritance. And that is something that today we should not support and should never support. Coming back to boundaries. Boundaries, I want to submit to you that boundary creates disunity. If we are serious in forging unity as one people, we must get rid of all these boundaries amongst ourselves. There's no reason why Africa should be having these boundaries. Here in the United States, we have boundless regions. I can today pick up from East in Washington, D.C. and go to California. And I do not require a visa. I do not require to report to police station. I do not require to ask a permission. I do not require all these burdens that an African person is subjected to when leaving one country to another country, let alone from the continent to another continent. Not only that, today you are forced to ensure that even in your own countries, you cannot freely move as you please. Hence, having open prisons as Africans. And this entire open prison, it is only us who can get rid of it, who can destroy it. For our own survival as African family. Not for just the interest of African family, but for our own survival. I want to submit to you that boundaries strengthens institutionalized slavery. Anytime these boundaries remain intact, slavery in all kinds of forms as we see it will continue to exist, even though you may not necessarily see shackles, physical shackles on people's arms or bodies, but there are mental shackles that remain and that are being strengthened day after day after day after day. And that, my dear family, we have to get rid of that. Again, I would submit to you that these boundaries are there to serve colonizers, those who believe that Africa is their personal garden, is their personal property, where they can come in and go out as they please, where they can get any natural resources of their choosing, just the same way you will go in your garden and grab anything that you want. African riches and natural resources and all that is in Africa should be benefiting African family first and foremost before it benefits anybody else outside of the continent. And for those reasons, it makes no sense why you, as an African family, are screaming hunger when the continent is stinking rich. It makes no sense how and why we are screaming warfares on our own land when we have no doing, or when we have not started these wars. These boundaries are there to ensure that we remain slaves for life. These boundaries are there to ensure that they serve the few who have Africa in their own hands instead of the mass whose Africa is their own inheritance. Now, this may sound like it's some sort of discrimination, but it is not a discrimination. I want to submit to you up in advance. African people, you must be proud of being Africans. And you must be proud of securing the interests of African family first and foremost, because the rest of other countries and nations are doing exactly that. We also must ensure that amongst ourselves, we are secured. Earlier, I gave an example that there is a country or a state called California in the United States. It feeds most of the United States. One state feeds most of the entire United States. How is it that, as fertile as Africa is, one country cannot feed the entire Africa when the soil is richer than the soil in these United States? The reason is because of those mental boundaries and mental shackles that we have. You have to beg for food to come from overseas, from across the ocean of Africa. You have to beg for food that is generically modified to come and poison you and poison our families. When you can cook, when you can plant, when you can literally get fresh food from African soil. What's wrong with this picture, guys? What's wrong with this picture family? We have to advocate for our better today and our better tomorrow, but also not just talk about it, but do something about it. Which is why openly we are saying that we have to collapse these boundaries. These boundaries are not serving us as African families. These boundaries are serving colonizers. These boundaries are serving special interests. These boundaries are serving those who already have a claim for this particular country, that particular country, that particular country. And those are not Africans, by the way. It makes no sense why today Africa is the battleground of warfare on planet Earth, with the exception of Ukraine. With the exception of Ukraine and a few other nations that have little wars here and there, Africa is the battleground of everything related to warfare. Now, why? Because now in Africa, the rest of the world is going in there to claim, to take whatever it is that they need, except Africans themselves. African themselves, they cannot take whatever it is that they need. They have to actually yield to the rest of the world to take in all these materials. And we have to change that picture. But that picture cannot be changed unless we have unity as one people. We need unity as Africans. And with this unity, we can be able to destroy these boundaries. These boundaries will always ensure that we maintain a disunity amongst ourselves. With destroyed boundaries, the unity is inevitable as one people. It makes no sense how me as an African, I have to ask a visa to travel from Senegal in West Africa all the way to Djibouti. Whereas someone in California state or California country, if you can put it that way, in the West, can travel to Virginia on East Coast without a visa. I want you to listen to me, Africans. In the United States, you do not need a visa to visit one state after another. A state is an equivalent of a country in Africa. You need no visa to visit California, from Virginia, from Maryland, from New York, from Vermont, from New Hampshire, from Florida, from Georgia. You need no visa. Why is it that you require a visa to visit Egypt and go to South Africa? Why is it that you require a visa to visit Cameroon and going all the way to Somalia? Why do you need a visa to visit Tunisia from Burundi? Because again, Africa has been dissected as personal plantations of these bigger outsider nations for the benefit of the outsiders, not the African family. I want to submit to you that just like there are many countries, many states that I've never visited here in the United States, yet there is not a single person who has prevented me from visiting any one of those states. But because of life, because of my means of traveling, my means of going there, or even the interest, I prioritize only the place, the region that I have business with, or that has an immediate interest to me. The same is true to you, African families. With collapse, with destroyed, with uprooted, if we uproot these boundaries, you won't all of a sudden see a bunch of African moving from west to the to east, from south to north. It won't happen like that. Those who already have the plans to move will move anywhere, with or without any boundaries, because moving is such a daunting task. It's such a move that has to be carefully planned, carefully executed, with measure and cautions in place. So there's no reason why we should be having boundaries in 2025. Without boundaries, you will not have any dictators in Africa. The same way, without boundaries here in the United States, you won't have a governor who's a dictator. You won't have a governor who's going to hold his or her people hostage. You won't have a people who will go hungry because they just don't have any other ways ins and out. But in Africa, you can experience all of that because that particular prison cell is only as good as the leaders overseeing that prison cell. The time is now for us Africans to get rid of these prison cells. The time is now for us to get rid of these boundaries that mark prison cells in Africa. We can coexist as a people. If Africans from all over Africa move to the United States, move to Europe, move to Asia, move to Australia, and coexist one another in those regions, why is it that it's not possible to coexist in your own homeland, Africa? That's because you have been sold the wrong goodies mentally. You have been told that you cannot coexist as one family in Africa, but then you are forced to coexist outside of Africa successfully without any issues. So the time is now for us to destroy these boundaries. The time is now for us to start forging friendship, to start forging all these strong relationships between families, between regions, between nations. The time is now for us to actually be each other's pillar. The time is now for us to ensure that what you are lacking, I can provide if I have it. What I'm lacking, you can provide if you have it. or collectively come up with a plan to literally self-sustain ourselves, to find the answers to the questions that we have today. We have to forge a unity. We have to form a unity. We have to fight for unity for our own survival today, tomorrow, and after tomorrow. There is no way that an African family is going to coexist 10, 20, 100 years from now if we remain on the path that we are on right now. We are being destroyed literally today because of other special interests. We are being destroyed today and we cannot defend ourselves. We are being destroyed today because we are regarded as a no good to no society on planet Earth. Read everything that's written about African family on the internet. We have to be able to change the narrative ourselves for our own interests, first and foremost, and not being afraid, not being ashamed of it. I want you to look at the United States as an example. I keep on using it because it's a very visible example. The United States does not shy away from forging friendship, from doing all that it must do to have control over as much territory as possible, over as much territory, space as possible, even waters as possible. They keep on taking and taking and taking and taking. Even if it's not written the United States, they sign all these kind of agreements to ensure that the interest of the United States is secured everywhere globally. When is it that my own interest is going to be secured? When is it that your own interest is going to be secured? When is it that our family interests are going to be secured? When is it that African family interests is going to be secured? Just within the African boundary continent only. We're not even talking about outside of Africa, just within ourselves, within our respective nations. When are we going to secure ourselves? When are we going to feed ourselves? As an example, there is one nation here called Idaho. They are farmers and they are very famous in farming potatoes. They feed the whole entire United States with potato. One state can feed the entire country. Do you mean to tell me that we cannot do that? Imagine if there were boundaries and every single state in the United States had to go get a visa to go buy some potatoes in Idaho, for example, where citizens would have to get visas to go shop, to go do this and to go do that. It would be such an extreme burden that would almost render their daily livelihood impossible. Yet, an African family is subjected to that every single day. I want you to see how unfair and systematically we are being disenfranchised on our own homeland and also outside of our homeland. And we keep on saying, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. We have to stop these guys. We have to courageously say, hail to the no. We can no longer subscribe to the status quo. But only us, we can declare that. A colonizer would not declare that on your behalf. An occupier would not declare that on your behalf. Rather, they will come in and sit with you and sign new agreements that make sure that the interest that they were seeking continues to be sought. The interests that already brought them to your homeland will continue to be secured through those bilateral agreements or multilateral agreements. but they would not care about your interests as a collective. They would not care your interests as a small group of people. They would not care of your interests as one family. And they certainly will not care of your interests as an individual. And I want to say to you that that is completely not okay. It is not okay. Because if all apples, if all if the tables are turned, if all things are equal, they wouldn't go for that. They would absolutely not go for that. So why should you? Why should I? Why should we go to the leftovers? The time is now, guys, that we realize that today African families are literally getting destroyed because our acceptance of the status quo, our acceptance of the unfairness that has been subjected, that has been imposed upon us, upon our families. And because we have given the blessings to those subjugations, it is also us who have to put an end to it. It is also us who have to say, hold up, something is wrong with this picture. I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving, yet I receive nothing. Yet I receive a fraction of what I'm supposed to be receiving. Yet there is no unfairness in this exchange. We have to literally dismantle. We have to literally get rid of a lot of agreements. That a lot of these, I would say, office slaves have made on behalf of our brothers and sisters, on behalf of our nations. The reason why I say office slaves, a lot of leaders, a lot of African nation leaders are not working for the interest of the African families, are working on the interest or on behalf of the outsiders, oftentimes who have put them in powers through the so-called democratic elections. We've got to wake up and smell coffee, guys. So much unfairness that's going on today. We cannot continue to live in this unfairness and pretend that everything is okay. You won't be disenfranchised outside of Africa and then also get to be disenfranchised inside of Africa and get to be disenfranchised in your own country and get to be disenfranchised in your own little small community. What does that suggest about you? You are not a valued human being. Let us not accept that we have no value as humankind. There are those who literally believe that we are just properties. Up to this very moment in 2025, Africa is just a plantation, whereas the people, whereas natural resources are just personal properties of the respected companies, respected governments, respected entities that found those people, those area, that discovered those territories. I made a comment, or I made another similarity examples to Native Indians. The United States is a country that is less than 300 years old. 300 years ago, the United States never existed. 300 years ago, France never existed. 300 years ago, the United Kingdom as we know it never existed. 300 years ago, Germany, Russia, China, Japan never existed as we know of them today. 300 years ago. Africa, as we see it today, was very different. Africa was an empire. African people were consolidated in small empires, the same way you have the United States, and there was huge empires with massive, massive territory of what had become African countries today. And those massive territory sought the interests of the collective African family until again the colonizer decide to chop Africa into small pieces. Today, African countries are lunch on the table. They serve at the pleasure of the colonizers who have colonized those respective nations, those respective regions. In 2025, guys, we're not talking about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40, 50, or 60 years ago. We're talking about fresh 2025 in this January. It makes no sense that we still live in slavery time, in modern slavery, and we call ourselves democratic. We still cannot control our own natural resources because somebody has made a claim over it. We still cannot have our own inheritance when we have been told that you have an inheritance only by words. We still cannot do as we pleased in our own homelands because there's already forces that have taken over the entire land. So we literally have to smell coffee and revisit this arrangement because it's terrible. If you cannot exist on your own homeland, do you think you're going to exist outside of your homeland? No wonder a lot of these young people, you're swimming to your death headed to Europe. You're swimming to your death headed to India. You're swimming to your death headed in so many places in such a peril traveling situation. Why would you want to do that when the continent is as rich as we know of it? Either we are not educated enough or we just haven't been open to the facts that we are rich as one people. The rich or the resources that's supposed to take care of me, that is supposed to take care of you, us as a collective, is being diverted outside of Africa to other nations except our families. Something is wrong with that picture. Something is wrong with that arrangement, and we have to change it. So, young people, I want to invite you to do your due diligence, to be a part of the change that we need today. As other nations are working hard to make themselves great and greater, let us not stay behind and be watchers and bystanders. We need to reunify ourselves and form one unity as a people. We need to destroy these boundaries within Africa so that you come from Egypt, you go to Senegal. From Senegal, you go all the way to Congo. From the Congo, go down to Angola, go down to Mozambique, go down to South Africa. Go all the way up to Tanzania, go to Kenya, go to Djibouti, go to Ethiopia. Have boundaries, free movement within Africa. There's no need for you to be paying visa. There's no need for you to apply for a passport in 2025. It is there to maintain prison cells. It is there to maintain our own internal slavery. It is there to ensure that we do not make progress. It is there to ensure that we do not develop ourselves. It is there to ensure that we continue to be killed as necessary as possible. By the way, there are many evidences to what I'm saying. You guys are smart enough to Google that yourself. Today's social medias and so many findings are publicly available, confirming what I'm saying right now. So until when are we going to say no? If we cannot be welcomed outside of Africa as a continent, we must be able to also close Africa and figure out our own situation as an African family first. It makes no sense how today any movement within the United States does not require visa, but any movement within Africa or amongst African countries require visa. In the European Union, you do not require visa from the European Union nations. Yet in Africa, you require visa. Don't you see that there's something wrong with this picture, guys? We gotta get rid of these boundaries. They are hindering our progress. They are hindering our unity as one people. And they are absolutely helping the colonized to continue to colonize ourselves, to continue to take out our resources that we desperately need to advance ourselves, that we desperately need to do right by ourselves. Africa has more than enough for the resources to be utilized amongst ourselves as Africans, but also with plenty leftovers to take care of the rest of the world. Now, why is it that in the abundance of all the riches that we have as an African family, we are still screaming hunger? We are still in awkward situation. We are still in destitute situation. It makes no sense. But it is us who have accepted those conditions. So I want to submit to you that enough is enough. Enough is enough. Do a personal inventory. See where you have boundaries within yourselves. Check out and see, do I have any boundaries in this area or that area? Keep it simple. It is not complicated. Boundaries are anything that is prohibiting you to become a better version of yourselves. For example, if you love flying, yet you have no license to fly, you're not a pilot, and you can't even afford to go for a pilot school. The boundaries of you becoming a pilot are so vivid that you can name them one by one. What can you do for you to go and get a license to fly as a pilot? What can you do for you to go and have an access to an airplane without having to cost you arm and a leg, without you having to go bankrupt? All of that we have access to, but we have yet to figure out that it is ours to use. It is only for other people, for other families collectively outside of Africa. We have to say no to this arrangement. African family in 2025, we must do all that we can to elevate ourselves, first and foremost. We must do all that we can to ensure that these boundaries are literally uprooted. And we must make sure that we can protect ourselves, not the responsibilities of those who are colonizing us. When I house you in a prison cell, I can control you. Not only can I control you, I can control your resources. I can control everything about you. That's Africa right now. Why would you subject yourself to a prison cell when you don't belong there, when you are kings and queens? We must start behaving like such. Our royalties are not in jail, in prisons. Our royalties are supposed to be seen in the kingdom palaces, are supposed to be seen in our various abilities, in our various gifts that we have as kings and queens. Why is it that we're behaving like slaves? Why is it that we can't remember who we truly are as a people and reclaim that and take it all back? That's why I'm agitating you right now. Because I'm sick and tired of being a slave when I know that I'm a king. I'm sick and tired to see you behaving like a slave when I know that you are a queen. It doesn't matter. You can remove my emblems of a king or a queen, but you cannot remove that naturally. It's naturally in you. The same way you can keep a bird from flying, but flight always remains within the bird. You can deny a fish a visa to swim from one region to another, but a fish will always have swim ability within itself. Today, you have kings and queens' ability to lead and to make better Africa, to do all these things that have been prohibited from doing, from you to do. But because you have given in, you have caved in. It is so irresponsible for you to give in to death and to allow your children and your children's children, allow the generation of tomorrow to other many years to come to also suffer because of our own irresponsibilities today. We have to change. We literally have to change the direction. And if need to be, you gotta fight for that which has always been yours. But somehow you have misplaced it. Somehow you have given it away to somebody else, knowing that it is yours and it's always been yours. So in this 2025, my plea with you is that you really fight a good fight for your family. Fight a good fight for your community. Fight a good fight for your country. And we remove these boundaries. We reassert ourselves as kings and queens of our land, of our homeland. We reassert into places of responsibilities, various places of responsibilities. And we stop begging. We roll our sleeves and get busy working. We roll our sleeves and get busy solving problems. We roll our sleeves, get busy training one another to get work done in various areas of interest. And we get busy protecting ourselves, protecting our families, protecting our loved ones. We should not perish in these 2025 and beyond, knowingly that we know where the enemy is coming from, knowingly that we are permitting it to take place, knowingly that it is treason above all. Let us not be it. Let us not be you. Let us not be me to be in those places where history is going to remember you, where history is going to remember me as the people who literally gave in, the people who allowed themselves and their families and their loved one to be completely enslaved for life. What will the people say about me, about you, about us collectively 100 years from today, 200 years from today, 3, 4, 500 years from today? Where they say that we gave in to slavery, where they say that we sold ourselves, where they say that we fought for our right to coexist, our right to live on planet Earth, or where they say that they just gave up, they just accepted. I want a better story for our generations to come. But I also want to coexist with others in peace, in dignity, in respect. Respect me, and I will respect you. Quarrel with me, and we will quarrel back with you. There's no need for fights, because anytime there is a war, there is also destruction. Destruction is inevitable. There is physical destruction and there is invisible destruction as well. You can take a peek, whichever that serves you the best, but let us not be us. Let us not be us, guys. So I want to end it here saying to you, what is your role in dismantling boundaries? starting from you personally, and then move towards your family, move towards your community, move towards your region, and move to various country nations. What is your role in dismantling boundaries? What do you do? What do you have to do? What do we have to do collectively? Because it is our task to do. And let us not kick it away from our laps and pass it on to our children or our great grandchildren. Let us not pass it on to a different generation or generations because we failed to do that which we knew and had to do because of being afraid, caving in as cowards. Let us not be us, guys. Let us not be you. Let us not it. Let us not allow it to be us. And let's allow history to say or to show us in a different image that is rightfully ours. That we fought well, that we fought for that which is right, that we fought for our survival as a people, as a collective, that we fought for the right of all of us to coexist in peace, that we fought for the right to respect one another individually, as families, as communities, as nations. But we also fought for the right to coexist as one people. That's what I really wish for each and every one of you. Let me check and see the kinds of comments that we have, and then we will end. But I want to submit to you that right now we are in the most amazing times of our lives where history is going to grade you without any bias. And when I say history is going to grade you without any bias, there's so much going on that whether you do it willingly or unwillingly, you are going to be judged. How is history going to judge you? History won't care that you're from this nation or that nation. History will judge you one way or the other. How would you like to be remembered when the time arrives and you have to leave this earth? How would you like your family to remember you as having contributed to a better tomorrow for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for your country, and for Africa? Would you want them to remember you at all? Would you want them to say, hey, I've done all that I could do, and now I'm passing the baton to you to carry on where I have left it? I want to see that tomorrow. I want to see a better tomorrow where we can do right by ourselves. We can fight a good fight for us. We can fight a good fight to coexist with the rest of the world. We can fight a good fight to maintain and to have our own inheritance and not having to justify it to outsiders when it is rightfully ours. We can fight for the right to reunify as one family that we always have been. But for the interest of the outsiders, we have been dissected into 54 pieces. And among those 54 pieces, we have been also dissected even some more to ensure that there is a complete disunity amongst African family. From all generation, from very, very old, all the way to the very, very, very youngest generation. This is a disease that we have to fight and get rid of ourselves. And nobody else is going to get rid of, nobody else is going to get rid of on your behalf or in my behalf. Okay, so let me read right quick and see what you have said here. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, my brother. Welcome, my brother in Accra. Yes, you're following 7x7. Thank you so much, my brother. We'd love that there are many more like you. We believe in fighting a good fight for ourselves and our family. But there's so much arrogance outside. And therefore, we have to fight smart. I agree, my brother. There's so much going on today in the world, but I want to submit to you that everything that you believe and everything that I believe, if we bring it all on the table and realize that we are one people who has massive power amongst ourselves, I will submit to you that there is no one single thing that we will never do, especially when it comes to unifying ourselves as one family. We don't have to be 54 different rooms with different combination key, with different languages, with different ways of lives, with different rules and regulations. We can get rid of all of that, guys. That's my dream for you. That's my dream for our brothers and sisters in Africa. We cannot continue to feed in to the rhetoric that's destroying us as an African family. Self-examine yourselves and see any areas that you have a question mark on. Only us, we can take care of it, guys. Nobody's gonna do it for you. Remember, you are seen as slaves. You are seen as mere objects. You are seen as a resource for the rest of the world to utilize. You are not necessarily seen as another human being. And because of that, you are going to be disrespected at all levels, which is why you are never given a welcome massively when you go to other land. I'll talk about this at a later broadcast, but I want to submit to you guys that if we unite as one Africa, as one people, and we dismantle every boundaries within the territory of Africa, there won't be much change in terms of who's who, whose resources are here and there. But there will be a free flow of movement, a free movement of all people. Those who are able to move will move. Goods and services will move to all parts of Africa. More people will benefit internally, but also externally. But the biggest that we can actually fight, wars. It will be very difficult, almost impossible, for any one of these little small region to pick fights and fight when we know that they're fighting with one people. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, you have over 100 different arms fighting among themselves for the rich or the riches of that nation. They're murdering people. They are destroying, cleansing families, cleansing people. And none of them are going to be taken to any court of law because there won't be anybody to tell the story because they literally have been cleansing. They have been cleansing areas because there's natural resources that is being fought in that region. Because there is someone who believes that that is a personal garden. The same way back in the days, Belgium treated the Congo as a personal property of the king. This is not my own saying. This is documented. And this is not hate. This is fact. So all the facts that there is today towards our lives as Africans, we got to bring them on, we have to bring them on the table. We have to re-examine ourselves as Africans. What are we doing to ourselves? What are we doing to coexist with the rest of the world? What are we doing for our own unity as one people? What are we doing to protect ourselves? And lastly, what are we doing to self-develop? I wish that all of us would work together. I wish that all of us, we work as hard as we can and overcome as many challenges as one people, because we can. And realize that together, Africa will not just be great, but Africa will be a powerhouse of planet Earth. A powerhouse of planet Earth, not just the continent of Africa. And today, everybody is outside of Africa sees that, they know that, except the majority of us, Africa. We think we are no good. We think we have no added value whatsoever to the rest of the world family. But that's because that is how it was programmed to your mind and to my mind. But I want to get rid of that today. I want you to grab whatever it is you can grab. Uproot it out of your head. You are absolutely an added value to a human family. You are absolutely an added value and necessary for the African family to go forward and the rest of the world to go forward. So assume your responsibility, assume your position as such, kings and queens, and do all that you must do to reclaim yourselves, to reclaim your rightful positions as kings and queens. And let's get busy, get to work. So that's it, guys. All the comments, most of them are private. I want to say that I'm going to take some time and respond to each and every one of you. But I want to also congratulate those of you who are really fighting a good fight. Those of you who are not just speaking up, but also acting up. You're doing such amazing work from all the way from Senegal to Djibouti, all the way from Egypt, going all the way to South Africa. There are those of you who are literally doing what you gotta do as kings and queens, who are literally representing Africa as sons and daughters of Africa, who are doing everything to advance your families. And you are absolutely doing your very best to represent a better tomorrow. And with that in mind, I want to say thank you guys so very much for all that you are doing. And I know that it's such a sacrifice worthy sacrificing about, but also sacrifice that is writing a better tomorrow for each and every one of us. And so, with that in mind, guys, I want to say I want to wish you guys a beautiful, 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 beautiful day. And I want to say that tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow is another fight. Come ready, come be prepared, come and let's fight a good fight. But above all, let's ensure that we fight for our own families, our own communities, our own homeland, to get rid of these boundaries so that we can reunify ourselves as one family. So thank you guys so much. I am Freeman Singirankabo here at AfriDominion studio. I want to wish you guys a beautiful day. Those of you going to bed, I want to wish you a good night. Those of you waking up early in the morning, have a beautiful day. And if you are still daytime like we are right now, I want to wish you a super fantastic day. Until tomorrow, God be with you and peace be with you. So long.